A little bit of a side note to start off with. Sorry if my microphone sounds like World War II communication devices, and if the footage looks blurry and pixelated. I have no money. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is categorized as a first-person shooter survival horror game, which I think is a pretty fair explanation of the game. Or, if you're from the West, I can explain it as Fallout, but more realistic, grimy, depressing, and hardcore. It was published and developed by GSC Game World, a company which has my highest of respects because they're currently working on the next game in the franchise, being S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, while undergoing a war because they're a Ukrainian company, so...
Це переноска для мого кота, який загинув ще в перший тиждень війни. Выходишь вечером, сирена, выходишь днем, сирена. Днем еще работать надо, поэтому особо не выйдешь, а вечером все время вот так.
Це моє робоче місце.
Вже третій місяць я живу і працюю в коридорі. Зі мною живе одноокий пес, врятований з-під обстрілу в Гостомелі. Зараз мені важко писати квести про війну, коли вона йде навколо.
Highest respects and prayers go to them. The original trilogy currently consists of 3 games, being Shadow of Chernobyl was released in 2007, Clear Sky being the second one in 2008, and Call of Pripyat being 2009. According to the wiki, S.T.A.L.K.E.R was pretty popular. It sold 4 million copies in 2010, and as of 2021 it sold 15 million copies. Despite the success though, I've sort of felt like S.T.A.L.K.E.R has missed out on the mainstream popularity. It wasn't really popular around the YouTube scene, at least from what I've seen. The game is based off the book called Roadside Picnic, which I personally haven't read yet, but I probably should. It's set in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, but in the world of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, it's not just the Chernobyl exclusion zone, it's the anomalous exclusion zone. Weird mutants and anomalies have popped out all over the zone to threaten anyone inside of it. That's about it for the synopsis of the vanilla games. There's a lot more to them, but this is just a short introduction into the world, so let's actually get into the mod itself. When it comes to S.T.A.L.K.E.R Anomaly, it combines all 3 maps from the vanilla games. According to the homepage, it was released in 2018. It wasn't the first mod to do this, however. That crown goes to Call of Chernobyl, which I like to call the mother of open-world sandbox gameplay in the S.T.A.L.K.E.R community. Without Call of Chernobyl, Anomaly or Gamma would not exist. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Anomaly focuses on truly expanding the gameplay elements of S.T.A.L.K.E.R into something more long-term. It was mainly created for fans and veterans of the series looking for something more, but that fact has been pretty much forgotten, and now a lot of players jump straight into the mod, which is understandable. It looks better, it has a lot better gunplay and just gameplay overall, and you also can't really beat free to play. Still, however, I highly advise anyone new to the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise to try out at least one of the vanilla games, just to sort of get introduced into the world and some of the characters and how everything works, because what usually happens is the new players that jump into the mods usually quit in like an hour because they don't understand the mechanics, and then they go and complain about it because, oh, it's too hard, it's too unfair, when in reality it's all on them for not actually playing the games. Okay, moving on to the gameplay. Oh, I'm gonna fucking die while making this video. The gameplay consists of a few main features: combat, the looting, the exploration, and completing quests and missions. Gameplay difficulty affects stuff like how fast you die and how much damage things do, obviously, but there's also progression difficulty, which affects the price of equipment and quest rewards, so it greatly affects the economy and how long your playthrough is actually going to last. When you load in, you'll have some stuff to equip. You always get the basics, like some sort of jacket or suit. You get a knife, a handgun usually, and a PDA. The PDA is basically your menu. This is where you see the world map, and it's fucking huge, by the way. I could barely find a picture to show you here, but it has a total of 22 playable areas or maps, all in one world, which doesn't even include the underground areas, so there's a lot to explore in this fucking game. You want to try to accept as many tasks as you can, because you need to make money constantly if you want to cover all your expenses like medical equipment and ammo and the other things. Unless you play on normal or easy, but you're not a pussy, are you? You can also make money by selling random junk to traders. Some people pay more for certain things and some pay less. It's something you just have to learn as you play. Quests are quite exciting because of the random nature of the mod. You can be sent to do an easy fetch quest just to find a squad of military wandering around there that you have to clear to get to your objective. Upon completing quests, you'll be rewarded money, reputation, and sometimes stash locations. Stashes are extremely important to progress, so I'll talk about them in a moment. The maps are separated by loading transition points located around the area, indicated by these light blue arrows that you see on the map. You can traverse the world on foot, or you can pay guides to lead you somewhere quickly if you don't want to deal with the bullshit on the way. The more north you go, the more dangerous situations you'll run into, so the progression is made up of obviously doing the main story missions, as well as upgrading your gear as you go to survive the harsher conditions. All the weapons and armor you find will be in a condition as if they just came from a torture test video.
God, just look at that. Oh, this is gnarly.
Broken guns jam more often, and may be less accurate. You will have to deal with this kind of gear until you find you will have to deal with this kind of gear until you find tool sets, which is where the stashes come in. Stashes are located everywhere. There's more stashes in the world than I care to count. There's probably over like 300 in total. They can be green stashes, which are the poverty fucking homeless stashes, or they can be purple stashes, which are the premium stashes of the zone and probably are owned by really important people, or just really fortunate people in general. Tool sets. There are 3 tool sets in the game: basic, advanced, or expert tools. When you find a tool set, you bring it to a technician of your choice and give it to them via accepting a quest and then turning in that quest. This will make them have a larger variety of things they sell after they restock. When you find a gun you want to repair, you first need to buy a multi-tool, which is used for disassembling basically everything in the game. You can use this to get gun parts, so this AK-74M I'm going to repair will need common AK parts. After you've collected all the gun parts you need the gun's designated repair kit. These can be gotten when you've given your technician specific tool sets. To actually turn the shitty spare gun parts you got from the AK, just as grimy as yours, into something usable, you need to clean them with files and ramrods first. After you've cleaned the parts, simply go up to the technician with the parts, weapon, and appropriate repair kit, ask to use their vice, and replace the beta Chinese parts of your AK with the new and clean Sigma Soviet AK parts. After that, you can just use oils and cleaning kits to upkeep your weapon and keep it from becoming a torture test victim again. This process is the exact same with armors, just a few different looking repair kits to get that done. You can also use the vice to craft your own gear, like backpacks and electronic equipment. The anomalies. Anomalies are metaphorical landmines. You step in them, you die. These come in all shapes and sizes, but the basic classification I have for them are gravitational, thermal, electrical, and chemical. Also psychic ones, but those are a bit more special. Anomalies can be found in single formations out and about, or they can appear as clusters. These anomaly clusters can be found in specific places in each map, and they never change. They also produce the zone's most precious treasures: artifacts. There's nothing in S.T.A.L.K.E.R that makes my dopamine receptors light up like candles more than artifacts. In Anomaly, there are 2 types of artifacts: junk and real artifacts, as I like to call them. Junk artifacts don't have any positive or negative properties to them, and their whole purpose is to be sold for pretty decent sums of money. On the other side, we have the real artifacts. These artifacts have both positive and negative properties, but the most important one that binds them all is radioactivity. Real artifacts will constantly irradiate you when you pick them up, so you need to carry these lead containers in which you can put the artifacts to negate the radiation. Real artifacts can be used for your own benefit if you get an artifact application module to attach to your belt. These can include bullet resistance, more carry weight, protection from the elements like fire, electricity, etc. Or they can be sold for stupid amounts of money, but be careful who you sell it to. Do not sell artifact to motherfucker Ivan Ilyegovich. Sell to Comrade Scientist Sakharov instead. The combat. On a harder difficulty, you need to care and pay attention when you play the game, which is always just more immersive. You will die in a few shots to the body, even less to the head. Early in the game, you'll most likely be fighting bandits who wear nothing but simple vests and trench coats. This makes them easy to one-shot headshot even with the weakest pistols. But the more you progress up north, the more equipped the enemies will be, so you'll need some high-caliber weapons if you want to keep that one-shot headshot meme going. The combat can be intriguing and very immersive, where you're sticking to any piece of cover while you take pop shots at your enemy. Or it can be this. The AI in this game are also incredibly fucking impressive, even to this day. It amazes me that AI made years and years ago are better than some modern shooters. Enemies in S.T.A.L.K.E.R will try to flank you. They will attempt to suppress you so their allies can move up to your position. They will flush you out of cover with grenades, and the best thing of all, they announce all of this in Russian or Ukrainian, whatever. But some more established factions know this, and can flank you without saying a word. This would be a good time to introduce the factions. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Anomaly has 12 factions, 2 of which are introduced by the mod and the other 10 are from the originals. Factions are the core of your gameplay, because they decide who you'll be watching through a scope and whose errand boy you'll be. The 12 factions are named as follows. We have the Loners, aka the Free Stalkers, the Clear Sky, Bandits, Renegades, the Ecologists, Military, Duty, Freedom, Mercenaries, Monolith, Sin, and the United Nations International Scientific Group, or the UNISG for short. Moving on to mutants. The mutant combat is serviceable. It works. That's all I really have to say. There's a lot of mutants that spice up the gameplay and take different strategies and tactics to eliminate, but most of them you'll be shooting with a shotgun because shotguns are the mutant killers. Some of them are quite creepy and horrifying though, which leads me to the horror part of the game. The horror in S.T.A.L.K.E.R is something special. It's present in your first playthroughs of the game as it focuses on the fear of the unknown. Like the first time I met a bear, I almost shat myself. The atmosphere of the nighttime, the underground labs, and the complexes does the horror element incredible justice. But like I said, this is all on the first playthroughs. Once you know the game and lore in and out, it stops being so scary, but I suppose that's the cycle with every horror game. Anyway, let's move on to one of the reasons S.T.A.L.K.E.R is many people's favorite game. The atmosphere and the world. With the game being set in Chernobyl, the world consists of old Soviet architecture, which I personally love. One of the most important parts of the immersion of S.T.A.L.K.E.R is the fact of just how dynamic everything is. GSC did a fantastic job in their dynamic system and their dynamic coding, whatever. In a nutshell, you as a player and as a character in S.T.A.L.K.E.R don't matter. With or without your input, the zone will stay the same. Factions will keep fighting each other, mutants will keep appearing. This really works to immerse you in the world because it gives off the impression that you're here on your own volition. This idea is reimbursed by the way the AI is programmed. Random stalkers will travel the world, trade with traders, upgrade their gear, kill each other, hunt mutants, all without any of your input. So a quest that requires you to kill a random stalker can be completed by an event completely unrelated to you. The game also has a day and night cycle, as well as various weather settings. Sunny, rainy, stormy, foggy, you name it. You also have these special events called emissions and storms. They are basically giant Control-Alt-Deletes that wipe anything in their path. Anything or anyone caught outside during one will be killed. Or worse, zombified. Nothing beats the comfiness of camps and bases, however. Taking a break from the horrors and bullshit of the zone, just sit down and take a breath. The sound design is also amazing. Just take a listen. Okay, now onto the story. S.T.A.L.K.E.R story is pretty in-depth and there's a lot of elements to it. The story in S.T.A.L.K.E.R Anomaly is separated into 3 chapters and it's just too long to go through in detail, so I'll just quickly speed run through like the first half of the first chapter. So if you don't want to get spoiled, I highly recommend skipping this whole part. Okay, so for those who are still here, the game starts and your first objective is to meet the doctor in the swamp. You ask him about S.T.A.L.K.E.R and yada 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 dialogue. You get an objective to go to the Agroprom Underground. In the Agroprom Underground, you will find S.T.A.L.K.E.'s hideout and you find some documents. With the acquired documents, you go to Rostock and consult Barkeep about it. He tells you that S.T.A.L.K.E.R probably headed north. After hearing that, you need to grab a psi helmet from Sakharov to get to the Brain Scorcher. After getting there, you need to disable the Brain Scorcher. Fight your way out of it to reach Zaton. In Zaton, you will speak to Beard about S.T.A.L.K.E.R and he will point you to a stalker called Rogue, who is in the Skadovsk with us. Speaking to Rogue, he asks you to get a special weapon. After that, you can go to a small testing lab in Zaton and you grab the Gauss rifle and bring it back to Rogue. After handing him the weapon, you both set out to the outskirts of Pripyat via the Jupiter Underground. After fighting your way through, you get to the outskirts. There you find S.T.A.L.K.E.R and speak to him. He asks you to help out with the preparations to kill a monolithian named Eidolon. Then you speak to Rogue to Stitch and this whole shebang gives a total of 3 missions. 1 to kill a pseudo-giant in the area. 2 to get medical supplies. 3 to get documents from a lab. Going to the lab, you need to fight your way through and into the lab with the outskirts. After getting the documents, you go back to S.T.A.L.K.E.R, hand in all of the completed quests, and that's where I end this part. The story goes on for a lot longer than this, obviously, but I just wanted to give you a little taste of what it has to offer. On to some of the bad parts about the game. The bugs. I've sucked the game's dick a lot up to this point, but without a doubt, I cannot say it's perfect. There are plenty of bugs, some minor, some annoying, some pretty fucking goofy, and some sadly game-breaking. The worst thing is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R Anomaly isn't that popular, so there isn't many sources of information if you do run into a bug. I know some people who had to restart playthroughs because of game-breaking bugs or save corruption. Crashes are also common or uncommon depending on... I honestly have no idea, but most of the time it's just because of the mods. The more mods you add, the more unstable the game becomes. So to avoid big problems with the game, make sure to make a lot of manual saves, not just the F5 key the whole game. And make sure you know what you're doing before you go and add like 300 fucking mods. There are plenty more bugs in the game that I didn't manage to capture, but I'm sure you'll find them yourself if you just play the game. Despite the flaws and some of the outdated aspects of the game, I still can't help but to love these games. I truly think there won't be another game like S.T.A.L.K.E.R for a long time, and the modders have done an outstanding job making a functional experience out of a nightmare of an engine that is the X-Ray engine.
Да заебал этот советский автопром!
Whoever fucking managed to make Anomaly, the biggest fucking props goes to you, bro, because this shit is unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, good game. 8.5 out of 10. That's about it. See ya.